Hi, Charlie. I think we're ready to go. Hi, Charlie. I think we're ready to go. Hi, Charlie.
You're unmuted, he's unmuted, Kathy's unmuted. Those are the ones that you need to be unmuted, right?
And Marty.
Marty on.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay. You guys are ready to
Okay. IT says we are ready to go.
Charlie, might want to start the meeting. You can hear me?
Charlie, can you hear us? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, you
Yeah,
can start the
whenever-
meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. It's past 3 o'clock here. First thing on the agenda is the extended stay-at-home order and our response to what Governor Holcomb decided.
Well, this is Kathy. Apparently my camera's not working, although the audio is working and I can see all you that have a camera on. So anyway, I guess we need to extend our order to be in compliance with the governor's order, which should be another 2 weeks until the 20th.
I'd agree with that. I do agree with that.
Okay.
Is that a motion then? Did we make a motion on that?
Yes, but we probably need some more discussion on that in terms of the policy for how we're going to accommodate our employees during this time. I would think we need to do it in conjunction with that, I think.
So that's basically what Marty came up with then on the.
Right. The policy that complies with the home policy or whatever the name of that is that the feds came out with. What's the name of that? Marty?
FFRCA, the Family First Corona, FFCRA, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act.
Yes, and there's a couple of things on there that are different than what our normal policies are. And I wonder if for the folks that are on this phone call, if you would detail those. I think
To summarize, you want me to summarize
2
essentially
extra
what?
weeks of sick time.
Right, there's under the FFRCA, all employees, and the county is, in my opinion, one of the entities that's covered by the act. All employees get an immediate 2 additional weeks of sick pay if they fall under the categories that are listed in the first part, which is basically people that are quarantined on an order or who are self-quarantining pending determination by a medical professional whether they have COVID-19, or who are taking care of somebody who is under a quarantine. Those people get immediate 80 hours, it's basically 2 weeks. And then that's in addition to anything they have already. Then there's a second category of people that are under the act that are taking care of typically children that are going to be at home and require supervision due to closure of schools and daycare centers. And that classification gets 2/3 of their regular pay, also for a period of 2 weeks, and then potentially additional FMLA after a 10-day waiting period. So as you can see, it does get somewhat complicated, but basically it deals with that. But then we have another category of people that are under Stark County rules, which are a little different. They are people who are in a high risk category, but yet aren't able to work from home. For an example would be a truck driver who's in a high risk category. And those people currently, at least, are going to be still being paid, but they're on call and they need to be ready to answer a call from the highway department, for example, on short notice and get into work if they need to. Okay.
Yes, that's how I understand that.
I think one of the questions too was at the highway department, especially with the road crews going to have to start, is they're run into a problem with that.
Not if they're on call and we call them back. Is that correct, Rick?
Yes. I started the schedule for summer improvements today, and I am optimistically saying May 1st we're going to be starting.
So that means, so for purposes of clarifying, so I understand, if we said everybody that's at home and on call, you need to come to work tomorrow because we're going to start road work tomorrow, then they would be coming into to work.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Except the only exclusions to that would be employees who have doctor's releases, correct?
That's
Okay. And
correct.
those employees, with this policy, those employees beginning tomorrow would be subject to the sick policies that we are about to approve here today.
Well, one thing I want to be clear about is the FF, and you could extend it, but the merely being in a high risk category doesn't get you under the FFCRA, in my opinion. You have to actually be sick, or sick, either diagnosed or under a quarantine, or sick with something where you suspect it's COVID and you're waiting to get diagnosed, or you're taking care of somebody who is. And so people who are in the category they're merely, they're only a high risk group, they don't actually qualify under FFCRA. So that puts them under your local policies. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So what you're saying then, Marty, is that like the group like was over 60 or had diabetes or heart disease and stuff, that's in a different category?
Yes, because that's not under, in my opinion, that's not regulated under the federal law. That's under your local rules. And what you've been doing up till now is you've had them on call, but if you didn't actually need them, you're trying to keep them out of the place for now. But that could change. And like Rick says, maybe the risk will be dropping by the end of this month. That does seem like a possibility. Or it might be 2 months. One of those two, probably.
And on the road crews, they can stay separate. They can easily stay 6 feet away from each other. And most of the time they are.
and they are classified as an essential, an essential, sector of the economy. So they're not violating the governor's rules by coming in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Rick's been, I'm pretty sure of this, that Rick's been dispatching them, like Dale and them have been dispatching them so they don't have to come into the office, which.
Yeah, for the most part, yes, yes. They mostly go from home. They minimal contact here at the garage just to get supplies and go out and fuel. So they've been going directly from home and they go home at the end of the day. With the exception of 2 or 3 people working here at the garage. So we've kept everybody apart. It's pretty easy to do out here.
Well, with that, that means that, to be perfectly clear, the one employee that you have that is on, has an excuse from the doctor starting tomorrow would be covered under this policy that we are going to approve today.
That is my understanding.
Okay. Well, with that, Charlie, if you want a motion to approve the policy, I have had time to read it, and I'm comfortable with that. I'd be happy to make that motion.
I'll second that one.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then I'd suggest Rachel distribute that to all the department heads so they can distribute that out to their employees.
Will do.
Basically, that policy was less, I guess, than what we had, and more than what the federal one was. Wasn't that right? Or is that how we discussed it?
Well, we allowed more under our original policy than what the feds, which you can do. It says my internet connection's unstable, just so you know, in case I can't, it keeps glitching in and out. I don't know, I got shitty internet.
Well, it's really, it's unfortunately, it's a federal law, and so it's devilishly complicated. I mean, it's really hard to summarize it, but in some areas, the federal law extends what was maybe more than what you committed to, I would say, because the federal law does require, in some instances, that you might have this 2/3 payment for people under FMLA. It's an extension of paid FMLA that could be up to 10 weeks plus the 2 weeks. So it could actually be 12 weeks, I think, total, plus whatever they had. So that's a little more. But on the other hand, the coverage of the driver, for example, that has a pre-existing medical condition that makes him high risk, that the county's position on that is more generous than the federal position. So I tried to combine them and make sure that we complied fully with the federal law, but that we didn't take away rights from anybody that you had already done that with.
Right.
Okay. I guess we can move on the agenda. Next would be the EMS. I guess it was Travis had talked to me about kind of wanting a fuel tank at the Knox base. So that's if Judson were to do a drop off at the hospital or whoever in and out, they could fuel up there, I guess, because I think you're still having a problem up there at the highway, right, Rick? Or is it coming along?
They can get fuel here now. We have that fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, because that was a week or so ago. He talked to me about that. So,
Right.
okay. So I guess we could skip that then.
We need to talk to him about how it's done because we have that other tank here now. I'll make sure we tell him that tomorrow.
Okay, good. We'll move on to the claims in the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the vendor claims in the amount of $215,959.96?
Make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. And then is there a motion to approve the payroll in the amount of $256,692.07?
Make that motion.
Second,
All those in favor? Aye. On the minutes, can we
Aye.
make one motion for all those, or do we have to do them separate on the, because
I
there's.
think you can make one motion for all of them.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes from March 12th, 2020, March 16th, 2020, March 17th, 2020, and March 23rd, 2020?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next up would be the DLZ bid cancellation.
Just to explain that, we had just started the advertisements for the renovations on the third floor of the courthouse when all this came down. And which means we really, because of the COVID-19 virus, we really could not proceed until things get cleared up, because of the social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's temporarily, I don't know if I want to call it canceled. It's temporarily on hold until we get beyond this point where because all the plans are drawn, everything's all ready. All we have to do is bid it. And so the money's appropriated for this year. So I would hope that once all this is lifted, we'll be able to go back and get those things done. I don't know, I don't think we have to do anything in terms of making a motion or anything, just acknowledge what transpired and that we're temporarily on hold with the renovations, I think.
Right. Yeah, until this is lifted, so that's all.
I hope the ceiling doesn't collapse in the meantime, but
Right. I guess if it was an emergency, I guess we could do something about it, wouldn't we be able to?
yeah. I think so, yes.
Yeah. Okay, next up, we have to retract the election day holiday that from May 5th and move it to June 2nd. We have to make a motion on that.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Well, Brian made the motion, so Kathy will second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I think that's it on the agenda from what I've seen. Does anybody else have anything?
I do want to talk about that broadband grant, that email that we got. It is an Oprah grant, and we're going to have to do something to get that finished out because we'll have if we don't complete that grant, we're going to have difficulty getting another grant from Oprah, and it could, if we ever get the Stellar going again, if that ever happens, it would affect that as well. So what I'd like to do, I haven't had a chance to really read 126 pages that she just emailed us about an hour ago, but I'd like to, all of us to read that. There was a link provided, and I'm wondering if you, Rachel, if you would print that off for all three commissioners so we could have a chance to read it and respond to that at our next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
I got something else, Charlie.
Okay, go ahead.
On the beach and, and the campgrounds.
Yeah.
I don't know, I had a May 4th type thing at kind of, and then see what's going to happen with this virus. And
Right.
I don't think that'd be a good idea to get that opened up quite that soon.
Right.
But you know how.
Well, especially since the governor's got his orders out to close all the state campgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, because could that be up to us, or is that, or how will we go about that then?
Isn't that campground, isn't it? That's actually county owned. So,
We own it.
yeah, I mean,
'Cause I'd rather be safe than sorry, or something going on out there. So to be sure,
Well, I guess I'd ask Marty's opinion on that.
right?
Well, I think you can, you can say that those big places are closed in compliance with the governor's order, or we need to give Callahan notice of that, of course. I don't think they're open yet, but I think they'd be closed anyway, because that he'd have to obey this. So I think, just to clarify it, say, and I can write you up an order. I sent you an email on that earlier, that if you decided you wanted to do that, I just write up the order and send it in tomorrow morning.
Well,
I
I think so.
Yeah, I think we should follow the governor's, what he did for the parks and stuff. So
And Knox and North Judson did it also, so it's, it seems to.
Okay.
how about the ones that are, like, even though they're not supposed to be year round and stuff, there's already people living out there. I don't know how that works.
Are they living there, actually living there full time? Or are they just camping out there on the weekends or something, or for a little vacation or something?
Yeah, that I don't know.
You know,
It's hard to tell. I do think there's some people that've been there for about a month or so, though.
well, I don't think by virtue of the lease that they're allowed to be there year round. He's supposed to close that and they're supposed to vacate. There became a big problem when they decided they wanted to store some of those things there. So now we're sitting here with this COVID virus thing, and people that have come to visit their campers, I guess, and the park isn't open and it isn't supposed to be open. So what do we do about that, Marty?
Probably send them a notice that it's closed according to the governor's order, and send it to Callahan. I think it's Callahan's responsibility.
Yeah.
I think what the state did was they didn't make people leave. They said they had nowhere else to go. And maybe some of these people are like that. They may live there the whole summer. I don't know. That's probably one of the reasons some of the neighbors don't care for the whole situation. But if they don't have anywhere else to go, I don't know if you'd really be able to make them leave.
The
Well, I know-
FAQ
Hmm.
on the in.gov website, the new executive order 2018 closes all campgrounds located in Indiana. People at campgrounds who reside in recreational vehicles and cabins and have no other place of residence may remain at the campground.
Right.
So as far as whether your lease says that he's not allowed to have any year-long residence, that's something you're gonna have to address on that level. But as far as him being open and to the public and having activities, that has been disallowed by this executive order.
So what do you
Yeah,
think?
I'm sorry.
What
I
do you
agree with
think-
what Frank is saying totally. That's right.
But what do you think the likelihood is that those great big expensive campers, those people don't have other places to live?
I don't know. Not my place to speculate. If they're saying they have nowhere else to reside, then I would imagine if you want some type of documentation, it'd be like anything else. Show me some
Yeah.
piece of mail or something, but does stuff get delivered to lot 7 of the campground? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I think we probably could start certainly by sending Callahan a notice. That's up to him.
Hickory
then.
Hills has year-round residents, and I'm not sure about Easy Camp. But it's something that's already come up today for the health department anyway.
Didn't they make the ones at Yogi Bear and Marshall County leave?
Marshall County did their own separate ordinance. It's pretty much the same thing. They did not include anything in it in regarding to year-round residents, I believe. Whereas the one the governor put forth does. So I don't know which one's going to trump who, but at any rate,
No pun intended, huh?
yeah.
I would follow the state. I would follow the state wording. I think, you know, you can't get in too much trouble following the state wording, really.
I think what, like what Kathy and Marty are saying with just follow the state orders and whatever they say is what we need to do. And send a
Yeah.
letter to Callahan to tell him how we're doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm sending a link to all of you guys as far as the FAQs page for the executive orders the governor put out yesterday.
Okay, thanks.
Kind of look it over and at least you got somewhere to start.
Okay.
Rachel's got a credit card thing here. I forgot what the email said now.
I would like to amend the credit card ordinance to allow EMS and health department, if they need it, to purchase masks, gowns, anything, any other supplies related to COVID-19 while this is going on. Just a temporary amendment to the credit card, because there are a lot of vendors that don't invoice and that you need to pay with a credit card.
Okay, yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
So is there a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Does anyone else have anything for us or any questions or comments?
I do have one little update regarding the unfortunate demise of the Stellar program. We're not at the end of the program, but this year we're working with Troyer to basically cancel that contract and come up with a new set of terms for the work that they've already done and what they may still do for us in regards to the funding that we do have coming. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. It's a force majeure situation, you know, the purpose of the contract became impossible.
Right.
What about declaring an emergency? I know that one of the things that I'm getting is that for the Stellar funds, one of the questions is, should we use it for COVID relief or should we use it for what it was basically originally intended for? If we declare an emergency, which I think it is, I think we could be eligible for some potential federal funding, number one. And number two, I also know Frank had mentioned to me that the people that he's working with that have the virus, they're quarantined and they need help basically getting groceries and stuff like that.
It's basically a matter of if they need supplies, if I got some way I can direct them or some funds or what have you available to where I can actually get them what they need to keep them from going out into public. Or if we're helping out the food bank at community services, as far as getting supplies needed to distribute, what have you, because right now only got a handful, but if it jumps to where we've got more than that, then it's just going to become an issue. So I figured if we can do anything about it now would be the time.
Right.
I think, right. And I think in the hotspot areas, they're suggesting that, you know, those that are at high risk, which is primarily senior citizens and those with health problems, stay at home and have their groceries and stuff delivered. Well, we don't have a grocery delivery service here in Stark County. So what can we do to help with that?
Well, one thing about that's really, I think, the front running item in the Constellation of Stark funding. We have to go through a little bit of public outreach on that. That's what the survey, I think, that you saw, Kathy, maybe answered was.
Yes, I did.
Right. That's to achieve that. And then after that, I think I can't say this is for sure yet, but I think so far the front runner in that, pending looking at the public outreach is to put together a service to deliver supplies to people that are unable to get them, themselves. And this would not only fund the delivery of the services, but it would actually, the supplies, but it would actually provide funding for the supplies too, for people that may have problems getting that paid for. So that hopefully wouldn't take too long to get done once we get I think the survey is supposed to be over with on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it's pretty quick, but let me ask you this, Marty. I really hate to see it because I really was hoping that we could have, someday this is going to be over with. I hope. I mean, life may change. We don't know. We may never have the same things we had before, but boy, I was really looking forward to some of those park spaces getting upgraded and, so people could enjoy them. So if we did use the funds for that and we applied for this emergency, would the Stellar funds be able to be replenished if there were federal funds to pay us back? Is what I'm asking, I guess.
Okra, frankly, is scrambling a little to figure out what to do. And I'm not sure what the status of that is, but I will say this, at the very minimum, Okra wants to fund some immediate COVID relief with their community development block grant funding. And that's what's on the front burner right now. And they mentioned that a service like we're talking about, like delivering supplies to people who can't get out because of the pandemic, is one thing that they would approve. Now, if we do that, that doesn't disqualify us from seeking future grants, and I think we're in a good position to get those. We've done a lot of things like the Flipping Finance Challenge. We've been proactive on this one. So the worst case scenario is we'd be looking at that. But of course, the thing that is a really difficult one to know is how the recession that is likely to be associated with this event is going to affect funding, both at the local level for matches and at the community development block grant fund thing. So there's a lot of unknowns in that equation.
Well, I guess if we get, because I did understand that the Okra was providing some grant funds to do the kinds of things we're talking about. So, which we needed to do a letter of intent or something, right?
Right, that's what we're developing right now.
Okay, and are you saying yes, right? Are you saying use the Stellar funds for the match on that, or is that, or, because I'd really like to preserve those if we can, or get them reimbursed?
It's a great question, but they haven't been entirely clear on the status of that, in my opinion, because we went through the stage where they said, here's, where we were discussing with them these consolation funds, that's, essentially $1/3 of $1 million. And they said, well, come in and check out this video conference that we're going to do. And then when the video conference came up, they didn't ever actually discuss the consolation funds. They just discussed $250,000 maximum per unit of government application under these letters of need. And the thing about that is, the Constellation of Stark, of course, is an association of several municipalities. Actually, according to the terms he said, each one of the four municipalities in Stark County could apply separately. So that would add up to $1 million, actually, if we all got the maximum, which is unlikely. But there was never a clear, connection made between those funds. So I'm not avoiding, I can't really answer that question yet, but I think that the answer is that they're really more interested in dealing with COVID right now than they are in the other things. So that's where their attention is.
Okay, so I guess, what you're saying is currently the Stellar Committee is kind of exploring the options for getting something together to be able to help our elderly population, our at-risk population, in terms of getting supplies and groceries. And that's part of what the Stellar Committee is doing now, whether that be from Stellar funds or from the new Okra grants that are being offered.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
exactly right. And I don't think, this will be a quick thing. We just can't do it until we have achieved our public outreach, which, I think we have a meeting on Thursday, right, Rick?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
So I think at that point, we'll probably have a decision, whether the public engagement supported that. that one looks like the lowest hanging fruit to me after having listened to the Okra presentation. But we will have to nail down with them whether that uses up our 333,000 or whether that funding is available to everyone. So why should that necessarily use up that part of our funding? But, you know,
Right. Right,
that's-
right. It's exactly how I mean, if there's another county that doesn't have the 333,000 and they will be fully funded, but we wouldn't be because we got that, I'd be kind of unhappy, but I guess.
Have you looked at the WKBI lately where what Pulaski County Commissioners did? Nathan Origer down there had an apply. Oh, let me read this to you. Pulaski County has declared a public health emergency. The resolution declaring the emergency was approved by the county commissioners Monday. Community Development Commission Executive Director Nathan Origer explained that it will make Pulaski County eligible for federal reimbursement for certain COVID-19 related expenses. If we need to obtain face shields, masks, sanitizer, etc., plus mileage, overtime, those sorts of things, those costs incurred directly related to this will get the county eligible for reimbursement. I think that we really should, like Kathy said, declare a health emergency, so possibly we can get reimbursed later for this, even if we have to use some of the stellar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me say this real quick about that. I've heard, my understanding is that every county in the state of Indiana is already a declared, emergency area for this. And in fact, I believe that every county in the US, it's the first time that's ever been done. Every county in the US was in that. And so what I'm saying is, I'm not sure that this actually is necessary, but it couldn't hurt. And I think that, to tell you the truth, if you want to do that, once again, I could draft the thing for you. If you just say you want to do that, I can draft one and have it, delivered tomorrow morning.
I think I'd want to do it.
Yeah, I think I'd want it on paper, showing that's what we wanted, so.
Yeah,
Sure.
if it's overkill, then, it's okay with me if it's overkill. And it just confirms that we've got that. Am I the only one having trouble where the screen's red now? And,
I seen that here.
oh, there's Marty. Oh, it's Bernadette.
So we need, Marty, can you do that for us then, I guess?
Yes, absolutely. What I'm saying is, I don't think well, if you notice when the governor did it, he went out and announced it, and then the written order came out the next day. You could do the same thing.
Right.
Because there's not really a lot of nuance to this. It's going to be something that says, we're declared due to the COVID-19, we have five cases, I believe, that are confirmed now. We think it's time for us to declare this, and I can just circulate it, and when you're all happy with it, that
Okay.
you have to wait till your next meeting.
Yeah, right. Okay. That'll be good.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. Yep. Sounds perfect.
Do we need to make motion on that then?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Does anyone else have anything then?
No, but I do want to say, if we could get something like that going for the people in our county, that's probably the very best thing that we could do, to help.
Mm-hmm.
Motion to adjourn?
Was there anybody else or, and then isn't this being broadcast on YouTube or something where we can take questions from there too? Or
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know how that works.
You're on a delay, so probably only people here that are in the that are on the list, but all the people here that are on your screen could unmute their mics if they had a question.
Yeah.
This is Jackie Ryan from The Leader. Can I chime in with something about the Stellar survey and everything?
Yep.
Yeah.
So just kind of to build on what Kathy said, I think that it looks like a lot of the public is feeling similar about the that stellar money, and they would rather have it go into like a physical project. I think what our line of thinking was, like, just as the executive committee, and that's why we put a survey out, because we didn't want just our opinions to be the only thing that was going into it. But the way that they're kind of awarding the money, we would get COVID, like the 333,000 that we have is separate from their COVID response program. So like Marty mentioned, we could potentially apply for up to 250,000 per municipality, but we just wouldn't get it as quickly. So if we end up putting the $300,000 towards a physical project, we might not see that funding till 2021, or potentially, even later. So that was kind of like our line of thinking was, this is the quickest way to use available funding. And unfortunately, I don't think if we use it on COVID that they would have anything in place to like reimburse us for that. But yeah, one of the responses to the survey just sort of mentioned that this is a really unique opportunity that we have that not a lot of communities get. And so then we should be really careful about making sure that, like, other sources are being tapped before we use this funding that, was originally intended for projects.
Yeah,
So
that's a
just to
good
kind of,
point. That's a good point, especially if we don't think we'd be paid back. But I guess I got to ask the wisdom. I mean, I'm not asking you or asking Marty. I might be more of a rhetorical question than anything, but what is the wisdom of the state coming out and saying this is an emergency, we're going to provide emergency funding, but you can't have it to next year?
Well, so the emergency funding, that'll be available to us more quickly, but I mean, that'll still be, like Marty mentioned, they're still making us kind of jump through hoops and do public engagement, just because that was a part of the Stellar program. So that COVID money, that would come in within the next couple of months, but any kind of like physical project money would kind of be put on the back burner. And so that funding wouldn't be available as quickly, from my understanding.
That's still months down the road, is we need the money now to help these folks now. So Marty, let me ask you, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just, like I say, rhetorical comments, rhetorical questions here, but what about the possibility of Stark County borrowing some money to be able to do that in anticipation of getting the money from the emergency granting agency and pay it back with that? I mean, that would help people now rather than, I mean, we're probably still going to need it maybe in 2 or 3 months. I don't know, but all these models they're projecting is that by the end of May, it's going to be pretty well leveled off unless it comes back again. Or
Well, one way of handling that, yeah, that's a great question. First of all, Okra said they were really open to discussing, things like that, and I think they're serious about making this first phase of COVID immediate relief happen quickly enough to be useful. That was one of the, and also this delivery system sounded like something that would leverage off of a lot of existing things, and so it wouldn't be too hard to get it going. Now, I think an interesting idea might be to say to Okra, can you commit to this? And if you can, we do have some money in the rainy day fund that we could borrow, possibly, just for example, and under the contingency of paying it back within 60 days. So this relief effort would be done in a timely fashion. They might even have a way that they could, they actually said another thing that they could do is maybe expedite a payment if they needed to by kind of basically robbing Peter to pay Paul temporarily. So they wouldn't rule that out, I don't think. They understand that's an issue.
well, can we explore that? I mean, rather quickly, because I mean, I do think, I truly believe if we have to jump through all the hoops and wait to get the money, the emergency might be, that's beyond us or whatever. I think the idea is we've got to, if we're going to do something, then golly, let's get on the stick and do it and make it happen. So these people are not, especially the shopping for the elderly and, that. I mean, they got to pay for their groceries. I'm not saying we're going to buy their groceries for them, But, somebody to go to the store for them and buy them and whatever, whatever the model comes up to be. But
Right.
if we just wait and do nothing, then we just don't do nothing. What I'm saying?
No, I do. I just want, they require that the step we're doing with that, with that online survey, they require that by under some federal regulation or something before you can do anything. But what we
Yeah,
should
I
be,
know.
we should by Thursday, we should be able to say, and to tell you the truth, the letter of need looks pretty easy to me. I mean, I say that now, but it didn't look too complicated. So I think we could put that out in very short order once the group established that's what they want to do. And even if the group decides that it wants to, it doesn't want to use, however they want to do it. But
Well, could
but I
you
agree,
you
it
tell
needs to happen fast.
could you tell your Stellar group that this is something that the commissioners feel strongly about and they want to get on it? I mean, and remind them that this commissioner is a nurse, and nurses just don't stand around, wring their hands and say, gosh, we got to check to see if this is okay to give this patient a CPR or whatever. I
Right.
mean, you do stuff. So,
Yeah.
Well, and I do want to say I've been coordinating, because something that we talked about behind the scenes was just like how we would implement something like this and how we could benefit as many aspects of the community as possible. So one of the things we talked about was potentially for the short term using school buses and bus drivers who are currently out of work to like do these deliveries or make these shopping trips. So I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure to something like this that we
Right.
have to kind of be aware of. And as far as insurance goes, I talked to a few of the superintendents, and NJSP talked to their insurance provider, and they seem to think we should be okay. But especially I think if we had the support of the county commissioners, because that's kind of what the issue is with the constellation of Stark, is that we're not actually a government entity, and we don't have insurance or any kind of funding that is, technically our own, aside from what we have through the community foundation.
well, personally, and I mean, I guess I need Brian and Charlie to chime in here, but personally, I'd rather use our rainy day fund with the caveat that it's going to be paid back. I want to be ensured that it's going to be paid back by this grant fund rather than use the Stellar money, if possible. And, that we do support it and that we strongly support it.
I agree with that.
So do I.
So can I just ask a question for clarification?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you would be in favor of using that 333,000 for some kind of physical projects here in the community, and then having our various municipalities apply for the 250,000 to help
Yes.
reimburse what we would spend
That's
through the rainy
That's
day?
exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk with the people over at Okra to see if something, because I mean, like you mentioned, it's kind of silly for them to think that we can just wait to do it. So if we could kind of set up something that would guarantee a reimbursement, I think that would be the best bet.
Right.
And then everybody's happy.
Right. And I would certainly hate to see that money that we worked so hard to get and dreamed about, making these improvements in our community just go up in smoke because we've got this virus, when we do have alternative options available to us. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Yeah, no, and that's kind of what is coming through with the survey too, is like people see that a delivery service would be beneficial, but even though they're saying that like maybe somebody they know or they would benefit from a delivery service, a lot of people are saying that, but then also saying they want that available funding to go into a physical project. So I definitely see where you're coming from, and I think a lot of people are, on the same page.
I think that's what my survey might have reflected. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, and those results we're gonna look at on Thursday. I think that's probably when we're gonna close them off, and we might have to do another like Facebook Live event. But that, like, if we're gonna go after a different line of funding for the COVID response, then I don't think that like that meeting won't have anything to do with the COVID. So it's like if we do a meeting, it can just specifically be about the projects rather
Okay.
than
Okay.
this. But we'll have
Okay.
to talk about that on Thursday. Sorry
that-
to go off on a tangent,
I
but
understand. And I appreciate you chiming in and giving your ideas and your thoughts on that. Because certainly, I mean, even though the commissioners support that, we can't do that without the support of the council because they would have to
Right.
be the ones to appropriate those funds. But in this day and time, I cannot believe that if they, especially if there was an opportunity, you know, if they were going to be paid back, that they would not go along with something like that. Because they want to help the folks too. I mean, you know, that's what we're here for. That's what government's supposed to do is help, you know, those, you know, that can't help themselves, I guess, you know, I mean, that's. Oh, well, you get my point.
yeah. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Does anyone else have anything that wants to chime in? If no one else has anything, we could make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah, gosh, this was kind of interesting little venture here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, thanks, everybody.
thanks.